Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Mixed Martial Podcast. Either one, still undecided on the name. We are here on the new set of the podcast. It is about 90% finished. We have the seat, which will be a mainstay. We have the wall decor, which will be a mainstay. And we have a little bit of the shelving on the side, which you can only just about see, which will also be a mainstay. However, there will be a little bit of differences in the terms of this is a very much a temporary method to be talking to you guys with. I will have a way to mount the microphone soon. And this is also going to look a lot nicer soon because I'm not sure if you can see, but there's some LEDs wrapped around the bottom of this. However, they don't currently work, so I will get that sorted for the next episode. But for the time being, very happy with how the setup has come just over the past week of getting everything redone and sorted. So I thought I'm not going to sit on all of this awesome news that we have from UFC 292, so we'll jump straight in to talking about it. Man, it's been an awesome weekend, I got to say. That event brought us a lot of really, really different storylines. A lot of things have changed now. We have a lot of different stuff on the table that we weren't necessarily considering before. Whether it's for O'Malley or not, there's a couple of guys that have done really well. We had the Ultimate Fighter finales, so I'm just going to get straight into it. First thing I want to talk about is obviously O'Malley, right? We have a lot of people in the bantamweight division that had fought Aljamain or were in line to fight Aljamain and had not yet. And those people are all now kind of, I reckon, a little confused about where their future in the sport really is. Because I would be. If I was lining myself up to fight this guy, Aljamain Sterling, right? And then all of a sudden he's gone. It would certainly make me question what I should do. Being that Sean's the new champion, do these guys even think they should call out Sean? Do they think that Sean's going to lose immediately? That's not at all what I think, obviously. But just airing out the things that these guys could be thinking of, the conclusions that they might be kind of drawing from this of what they want to do with their careers, because a fighter's career is entirely based, for a top 15 fighter at least, it's entirely based on what the champion of your division is doing at the time. If your division gets held up by the champion, there's not really much you can do. If your division gets held up by contenders, there's not much you can do. But that hasn't really been a thing until recently, I feel like. There hasn't been a crazy amount of struggle to get the number one contenders their matches against the champion until recently. And I think it's because we have too many guys that are too good. They are, especially in a couple of those divisions, like 35, 45, and 55. 170 is pretty good as well, but I would say mainly those three weights are just, there's so many good fighters in them, man. And all three of them are, to an extent, held up. Bantamweight's held up because of Aljo and the streak that he was on, and obviously he wasn't letting a whole lot of people get to the top of the table. He was pretty stuck between Corey, Sean, and Marab, who can't even fight Aljo. 45, we've got Volk, who is just on top and has been for so long, followed by Holloway, who is keeping everyone at the bottom, not letting anyone take his spot for the number one contender versus Volk, even though he's number one ranked, but he remains to not be the number one contender. And we have Topuria, who's an awesome matchup for Volk. Great style that Topuria rocks in the octagon. But these divisions are just so full. 55, Islam Makhachev is stuck between Volkanovski, who is also holding up both those divisions in doing his double champ attempt, which I can't blame him for. But regardless, it is still doing some bit of damage to some of these guys' careers. It's kind of inevitable. It's going to happen to anyone in any division when you are trying to get double champ, or you've got a reigning champion that's been the champ for a while, or you've got a lot of rematches going. You know, we just only recently got out of the feud between Figueiredo and Moreno for the flyweight title. This fight with Pantoja that Moreno just lost, I think that's the first of the last 4 title fights, or the last 5 title fights at flyweight. I believe 3 of them were Moreno versus Figueiredo. I think we had Brandon Royval in between, and then we've had now the Pantoja fight as well. But that belt was really tied up. So was 35 was with Aljo, And 55 is tied up with Makachev in the double champ status, as well as Justin Gaethje waiting in line, as well as DP still thinking that he does deserve a shot if Justin is to not be successful. And with all of those things, just to top it off, the cherry on top, Conor McGregor is coming in to just fuck everything up. As much as I love Conor, he's coming in to fuck everything up by throwing a spanner in the works in terms of the leaderboards, like what's really dictating what skill level some of these guys are at. Conor's re-emergence into the sport is one where it's like John Jones, right? They want to put him back at the top because John Jones left as one of the best, while Conor didn't leave as one of the best. He's known to be one of the best, and he's returning. It's like GSP as well. Like when some of these guys leave, whether they leave as the best or not, when they come back, people want to give them, if not an immediate title shot, pretty close to that. So whatever division Conor chooses to come back in, whether it's at 170 or 185 or 155 even possibly, which I feel like it would be a struggle for him to make that weight, but I think if Conor's going to come back for a few fight stint, he would probably be smart enough to know that that's the deepest division. That's the best one to win the belt in, right? The only other reason that I'd say he wouldn't do that is because he wants to be a 3-division champion, by winning the welterweight title or by winning the 185 title, which I don't see him doing. 170 is possible, but 185, I don't think that's going to happen. There's too much shit going on there, and Conor's not big enough. But O'Malley has definitely done a number in the division, I gotta say. And it's good. It's good. It needed to happen. It's sometimes you need a refresher like that when there's a champion that's been reigning for a while, especially when, with Aljamain, he's the longest reigning bantamweight champion ever. I believe he's tied with Dominic Cruz for title fights. So, and Dominic Cruz it was a split. His reign was split into 2 separate reigns, whereas Aljo just had the one stint. Granted, the Piotr Jan one that's a DQ, could probably be listed as not being a great argument to say that Aljo is above Dominic Cruz, but I will say, I could be wrong in saying this, but I'm pretty sure Dominic Cruz got beat by Henry Cejudo, right? And Aljo beat Cejudo, so I think that puts Aljo above Dominic Cruz. Man. How can you say Aljamain's not the best bantamweight of all time? I don't see how you can. Because I would have said that Henry was, or Dominic Cruz. It's between those two, right? And he beat Henry, and Henry beat Cruz. So it's kind of a no-brainer, if you ask me. But O'Malley's beaten him now, and we've got a couple of guys at the top. Henry is obviously still on the table because of how close that Aljo fight was, and I think O'Malley would like to fight Henry. But he wants to fight Cheeto next, which I can't blame him for. I don't think that O'Malley sees Cheeto as a threat. I don't think O'Malley thinks that, while he might be saying it's a big fight, I don't think he thinks that Cheeto is a draw. Which he certainly is. Cheeto's a big fighter. He's a popular guy. He's been in the sport for a long time, but I don't think he is a draw. I don't think you would say that you could use Cheeto Vera's name to make a lot of money on a card, whereas you can definitely use Sean O'Malley's name to make a lot of money on a card. But I think you could make a lot more money from something like O'Malley versus Henry. I think that's a much, much, much larger pay-per-view than Cheeto versus O'Malley. I think that one is more just to get back O'Malley's only loss. And I can't blame him for that. It's like I would do the same thing in his shoes. I feel like there's not really any reason to want to fight the other guys first, especially with the fact that if he doesn't fight Cheeto now, I don't know if he'll ever fight Cheeto, because I don't know if Cheeto's ever going to be able to get back into the top 5. I think he could be 5 right now, but you know what I mean. I don't think he's going to be able to get back into title contention. I think Sean O'Malley is the only way that Cheeto Vera will ever fight for the belt again, because especially after that Sandhagen loss, I just feel like Sandhagen is next in line for the title with Merab and Henry, obviously, like I said, those 3 guys there. So I don't see a world where it's even possible that Cheeto gets a fight when it's not O'Malley there. If it's Aljo is still the champion, if it's Corey becomes the champion, if Henry becomes the champion, if Merab becomes the champion, I don't see any of those outcomes meaning that Cheeto gets a shot. Maybe if one of those guys won and then held the belt for a couple of years, then Cheeto would be like, hey, he's beat everyone else, you're next, which happens a lot, right? But I don't think there's any world where Cheetah Vera is actually the person to be picked for this. I think that Sandhagen fight with Cheetah, he needed to win that. That was his only chance at getting back into title contentions. But he didn't, and I think he struck gold with O'Malley, man. He struck gold by fucking beating him with the perennial nerve issue. Because now that O'Malley wants that loss back, O'Malley can say what he wants. I believe that he thinks it'll be at least somewhat of an okay fight. But I don't think that he truly believes it's a money fight as much as he believes it's good for the storyline, which inherently could be decent for money. But I'm fucking excited for it. I just want to see Sean fight to defend his belt. That's the fact that Sean O'Malley is going to defend a championship in the UFC is bonkers. It's pretty funny, to be honest. Like, a lot of guys would look at the sport and say that guys like Sean O'Malley are taking the piss out of it, and it's like they're kind of ruining the sanctity of it by the crazy hair and all the face tattoos and whatever it may be, the weed smoking, among other things. He's a gamer, he streams and has his own podcast and stuff. He seems more like an internet personality that became a fighter, if you were just to look at it from the outside, I'd say. But that's not true. He's been a fighter for a long time and just learnt how to suit himself to a good marketing scheme by being, a big time personality on the internet, which it's very smart. It works very well. And I think it's the new generation of what Conor did. Conor essentially just wanted to promote the fight by marketing it with drama and stuff, but that was marketing for TV, right? That's marketing for TV and pay-per-views, which back in the day was the go. But now the go is the internet. Now the real bread and butter of making a lot of money and getting a diverse group of fans and a boom in popularity. It's the internet. It's having a stream of content that you make, maybe whether it's a podcast or whether it's you've got Mighty Mouse does his gaming videos as well as his podcast and YouTube videos, doing all of his breakdowns. Henry Cejudo has his podcast with Mighty Mouse as well as doing all of his kind of breakdowns on YouTube. You've got obviously he's retired now, but you've got your DCs, your Michael Bispings and stuff that make all these videos, doing these predictions and podcasts. You've got Ronaldo Moicano. He live streams heaps. I believe he makes a lot of YouTube videos with those live streams as well. These guys know what they're doing. These guys have looked at the market, seen an opening and taken it. And I think a lot more guys will start to do it in the near future. We already see it a little bit just with the guys that know how to use social media, like just basic knowledge of how to market yourself well on Instagram and TikTok and things like that. Like you see Izzy knows how to use his social media to get himself out there, and he talks directly to the fans and conveys his messages of his plans with his future. He's very good at using that medium to reach his fans effectively, and it makes it feel more personal, which is something that I think guys like Sean O'Malley and who else is a good one? I'd say Moicano's fans probably feel the same way. You've got Jamal Hill is really funny. He really knows how to he's made plenty of good meme format style content as well as just informative stuff. I believe he has a podcast as well that he started. So these guys know what they're doing, man, and I think O'Malley is truly at the top right now in terms of popularity, and I think he will only go higher from here, man. He's going to become very well known. So Cheeto fight next. I think it's going to happen, as much as I'm not sure that it's really what should happen. I can see why Sean wants it, and I can understand why Cheeto's immediately jumping on the opportunity, so I think that's what's going to happen next. After that, I'd like to see Merab or Henry. Merab deserves a shot, full stop. I don't think it's a good matchup for Sean at all. I think it's a terrible matchup for Sean. Merab is definitely the hardest fight for Sean in the UFC, but I think he's just sitting there waiting, and he knows he's next, so it's going to be a tough cookie to crack, but hey, O'Malley could do it. We'll just have to wait and see. Also, at 292, with O'Malley wanting to fight Cheeto, right? I'm segueing into a separate topic here, but he said he wants to do it in December. He said, let me fight Cheeto in December, because it's the only card this year, only pay-per-view card this year that is not taken already. So it's currently the 23rd of August today. We have the Izzy versus Strickland coming up in about 2 weeks. About 2 weeks. Then we have a month later 294, which is Abu Dhabi, between Makhachev and Oliveira. And then a month later in November, 295 between Jones and Stipe. And then 296 in December is the only vacancy. We currently have O'Malley and Cheeto that want to fight on that card. Okay, I can see that. Leon and Colby were meant to fight on UFC 295. However, it's not confirmed, so to speak, but John Jones doesn't want Colby there. John Jones said that he won't fight if Colby's there. He's not going to sit at a press conference with Colby, which is kind of funny. Because I know why. Colby has a lot of shit to say about John, about the shit he's done and the past of his career and all of his violations of the codes and, being banned and whatnot. But John's said that he won't do it. He won't fight on the same card as Colby. So I think 295 is going to be exclusively Jones versus Stipe. I think they need another fight on there, but it won't be Leon and Colby. I can tell you that much for free. So we've got O'Malley and Cheeto and Leon versus Colby both sitting waiting for 296 now, is what they're saying, because Leon and Colby have to fight this year, because it was March. It's been nearly 9 months. By December, it's been nearly 9 months since they fought. Since Leon's fought. It's been even longer since Colby's fought. It's like 2 years. We also have Volkanovski versus Topuria. Volk wants Islam. Islam is not ready. He's busy. He's got Oliveira and then Gaethje's on the horizon. Aside from that, though, simply the fact that he's busy now means Volk wants to fight straight away. He doesn't want to wait until next year. He doesn't want to wait until Makhachev. If he has to wait, he said he will wait and he will fight Makhachev. He won't wait till next year and then fight Topuria. But he said if he fights this year, then he'll fight Topuria. He wants to fight Topuria this year, get him out of the way next year, ready for the Makhachev rematch. The other group of people that we have is Prohaska and Pereira. Now, this one isn't even confirmed to be the match that's made, right? Whereas we know that Leon versus Colby is the match. We know that O'Malley Cheeto is most likely. There's not really anything that can overtake that in terms of what O'Malley wants as the champion. And Volk has said that Topuria is next, and Topuria, we know that Topuria is next because he's the only one that can do it. And then we have Prohaska versus Pereira. This is pretty much shadow confirmed. Like, behind the scenes, everyone kind of agrees that this is the next fight. And a lot of people have been saying, and it was asked to Dana at the press conference, is that going to be at UFC 296? And it's a great question, because the first card of this year was UFC 283, where Jamal Hill and Glover Teixeira fought. That was the last light heavyweight bout we had, January of 2023. So if they don't fight in December, you're telling me it's going to be either on the dot of a year or longer since there has been a light heavyweight champion in the ring. That's a long fucking time. I don't know if there's been any champions in the last couple of years that have been out for that long. I believe it's 18 months, right, is when you get stripped. At least I know that's when Conor was stripped. He was stripped after 18 months between each of his two fights, when he went to fuck around with Floyd Mayweather. So we've got Leon Colby, O'Malley Cheeto, Prohaska Pereira, Volkanovski Topuria. They all want to fight at 296. Only two of them can. Okay? Because you can't have three title fights. I'm sure you could, but I do not think they would put three title fights. Okay? They might put one of these guys on 295 with Jones and Stipe. It's possible that they would add one of these to that, but it won't be Leon and Colby. So if someone was going to fight in November, it can't be O'Malley Cheeto because O'Malley just fought, and it's too close. Plus, O'Malley doesn't want to fight that soon. And it can't be those two. And then next up, Prohaska versus Pereira is possible, but it's so soon. Are we going to see the announcement for that fight after we've had no knowledge of it at all? They're going to just come out and say it's happening in 3 months or 2 months? I don't think so. I have a high amount of doubt that would be the case. So then Volkanovski and Topuria is possible. But Volk still says he's out on surgery. And you can't really book a guy until he says, I'm better. You can't book a guy because he says, I'll be better. I'll be good in 2 months. That's not going to happen, because then you end up with the champion not fighting for the belt, the contender ready to fight, and you got to make a fight with somebody else. What is like an interim championship gets sprung out of nowhere? That's not optimal. And it's definitely not marketable to sell an event, even if it's only the co-main event. Still, it doesn't help. So Prochazka Pereira is the only one that can really be on that card, and we haven't heard anything about it, so I don't think it's going to happen. So all four of these guys, all four of these pairs, 8 of these guys, are waiting for 296. And then Conor McGregor comes back and says, hey, 296 is still on the table. December is still an option. When a lot of us were like, hey, you missed that boat in June. You didn't sign with USADA, regardless of whether we think there's going to be an exemption made. You'd think that would have been said a long time ago. But possibly not. McGregor says that December's still on the table. How is December still on the table is my question. I think it has to be next year. It could be this year, obviously. Like, there's a lot of guys involved in the talks of that. Let's say it could be this year. But how? Leon and Colby have to fight this year. So does Prochazka and Pereira. O'Malley and Cheeto want to. Volk and Topuria want to. But Colby, Leon, and Prochazka Pereira should happen this year. Leon and Colby, it's been too long. It's been since March, like I said. And Prochazka Pereira has been even longer, because the belt has been in limbo since January. So those guys need to fight this year. Unless there's other issues like Prochazka Pereira not being ready because of Prochazka saying that he needs 2 more months to be prepared. Like, he's wanting to give his injury more time, which is possible. But I don't see it happening. What I think is going to happen is we will see UFC 296 will be Leon and Colby as the co-main event, with Prochazka and Pereira as the main event. Do we want that? Or do they want that? Do Leon and Colby want to be a co-main event? I don't think so. Do they have a choice? Probably not. Leon didn't even have a choice whether he was fighting Colby or not. I'd say that Dana is looking at this fight as something that really just needs to be over and done with, so that we can then continue to take these welterweight contenders and bring them up and let them fight people. Conor cannot fight this year. If Conor fights in December, none of those 4 title fights will occur. Not one. Not a single one. Leon Colby, O'Malley Cheeto, Prochazka Pereira, Volkanovski Topuria. All 4 of those will be in 2024 if Conor McGregor fights in 2023. That's a fact. Because the UFC has never, to my knowledge at least, I'll be shocked to hear, has never placed a title fight below a non-title fight on a pay-per-view. And if you think that Conor McGregor is going to take co-main event to anyone, you're wrong. Whether he should or would be just in doing so is not up for debate, because he won't do it. Conor McGregor hasn't fought in a UFC event where he wasn't the main event since, I believe, his second fight in the UFC. I think it might have been the Dennis Siver fight. Even that could have been a main event. I know that Marcus Brimage, his debut was not a main event, obviously, and I believe the second fight was still not a main event. I don't think that was Dennis Siver. I think I'm misremembering. But since 2014, every single fight Conor McGregor has ever had has been a main event. And if you think he's going to stop now, when he's returning, possibly to be the biggest return in combat sports history, I do not think he's going to take co-main event. And if you think so, I'd be really intrigued to know why and how. Even for the money's sake, they want Conor to be the big name. That's the bill. The big sale is McGregor versus, not Prohaska versus Pereira, co-main event, McGregor versus. That doesn't happen. It's McGregor versus, and the co-main event is a title fight. That's what a lot of his previous events have been. But it can't be this time, because this isn't a title fight. So if Conor McGregor fights this year, he will... And I bring that to you because also it's a weight class issue. You can't have... The UFC does not do pay-per-views where a lower weight is listed at the top. It's just standard rule that when you have 2 title fights on one pay-per-view, the heavier weight is the main event, and the co-main event is given to the lower weight class. So even if Conor was fighting for a title, we're looking at 2 of these guys, Leon and Colby versus Prohaska and Pereira, which could have been above him, which would still lead to not being an option, because Conor McGregor will not fight at a co-main event. Not for his return, at least. It won't happen. It could happen for his second fight. Say he comes back and loses, but then says he wants to keep fighting, like he's still here. He's like, it was a close match to Chandler, maybe split decision, possibly, who knows. He would maybe then accept a co-main event, but I doubt it, man. I doubt it. If we ever see Conor McGregor on a co-main event or on a fight night, not a pay-per-view, I pinch myself. I don't think I can imagine that being real. And I don't think most people can. Most people with any kind of knowledge of mixed martial arts, UFC specifically, probably can't even imagine that being the case. So, to recap, Leon Colby, O'Malley Cheeto, Prohaska Pereira, Volkanovski Topuria. 4 title fights waiting to happen. 2 of them need to happen this year. All 4 of them will be shot down if Conor McGregor comes back. What do? I think the best outcome here would have been for Leon Colby to be the co-main event of UFC 295, and I believe this is what Dana wanted, and he's probably quite upset that he no longer has this as an option. But it would have been Leon Colby, co-main event, UFC 295. 296 probably would have been just Conor. And then I would imagine that Prohaska versus Pereira would have been the first pay-per-view of the year, to mitigate the fact that it would go longer than a year without a title fight. Now, what I think will happen, Conor McGregor is no longer likely to fight this year. And we have those 4 title fights. Leon Colby didn't happen on the card it was meant to happen on. I think we're going to get Leon versus Colby as the co-main event to Prohaska versus Pereira in December at UFC 296. And in January of 2024, UFC 297 will be either Volkanovski versus someone. We're talking Topuria, we're talking Makhachev. He doesn't want to fight Topuria next year, but is he going to have to? Maybe January is not too far. Maybe January is okay, because then at least it's the beginning of the year, not like he's having to wait till April to fight. And O'Malley Cheeto could also be the first pay-per-view of the year. But if that's the case, where's Conor McGregor? There's not a single outcome I can look at here between these 4 title fights and this one non-title fight main event. All 5 of those fights, there's not a single world where all 5 of those fights happen before February next year. Unfortunately. Because if we get Leon Colby, Prohaska Pereira in December, sweet. 2 of them done. O'Malley Cheeto, Volk Topuria left. And Conor left. I think Volkan Topuria won't happen. If it doesn't happen in December, it won't happen until after he's possibly fought Makhachev again. If he wins or loses, I don't know, and that could throw another spanner in the works. We might not even see Volk return to featherweight if he wins. And then you're left with O'Malley Cheeto and Conor. So one of them cannot be the first pay-per-view. And I think if Conor's not the first pay-per-view next year, we're going to be waiting a long, long time for that fight. Thank you for listening. I hope you did enjoy this episode of the Mixed Martial Podcast. The new set is very nice. I feel a lot more comfortable in this chair speaking with you guys. I will have much more news to bring you in the near future. I have a lot of stuff I didn't even touch today. Didn't even speak about The Ultimate Fighter. Man, what a season. The finales were incredible. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you for listening. I hope you did enjoy. And I'll see you on the next episode of the Mixed Martial Podcast.